The Saab is bouncing to the left, bouncing to the right, and there's a noise coming out of the front end right there of this Saab 9.3. Hi, I'm Maury Thibodeau, and I'm your host for this edition of 316 Automotive. Let's see what we're going to do about it. The problem was bad shocks, so I've already replaced both of the ones in the back. I didn't film that because that was very easy, but I did do the front end, and that's what we're going to see right now. All right, first thing, in order to save yourself a little money on the realignment, usually you have to have get a realign job when you're changing out the struts. If you're clever about it, not necessarily, and I'll show you how. All right, here you go. Here's the strut for the passenger side. You see the white paint that I put around things? Those are my witness marks, and if I align my nuts right on top of those witness marks, when I put that strut back, because the whole strut, remember, this whole strut's gotta come out. So when you put it back in after you get the new shock absorber inside the strut, I still call it a shock absorber. Anyway, you just line up these witness marks and you will not have to get a realignment done because you're going to be so close that it's not going to be an issue for you. Also, another top tip, this crossbar here, you can see it goes all the way across the other side and back. My light just went out. Undo one side at a time. So I've completely done the driver's side over there, got the new strut and everything in it, and put it all back together, lined up exactly on my witness marks. And then come over here, and I'm going to undo this. That is all tight over there. And now I'm going to undo this, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to drop the strut out. And I'm going to, when I come back in, I'm going to line up exactly with the witness marks, and this crossbar here is still going to be fixed in place like it was when the alignment was done. That is going to save you a few bucks, so that's a top tip. Okay, real quick, I'm going to tell you where I got the parts. Like the struts here, call them shock absorbers. They are KYBs. You can see the part number there. So the part number is 366012, and I got them at Rock Auto. Not a sponsor. They got the big screw holding the disc in place, and that's a T30. And then you want to undo your the caliper, and the caliper, the slide bolts, they're a 7mm Allen head. So do that from the back, remove the caliper, and then remove the bracket too. The bracket is 18mm. I'll get to that in just a minute. This here is a Pitman Arm Puller, but it works real good for these tie rod ends, and I'll get you in there here in a second. Okay, you see how I've got it in there? I've got the Pitman Arm Puller, and I've got the nut on the threads, fully threaded on that tie rod end. So now I'm going to pull it off. Got my 1/2-inch drive on there. And there you see, it comes up. Just get a piece of wire and wire it to that screw right there that's sticking out, so it'll be out of the way like that, and that'll be perfect. Here you can see I hung the brake caliper up by a piece of wire so it's not hanging on the hose, and I hung up the rod end for the steering rack so it's not hanging down in my way. And I've put the speed sensor right there so it's out of my way. The only things we've got to disconnect right now, we've got the large nut off the axle, and we'll get that moving in and out. And we need to get the ball joint right there. That is a 3/4. We got to get the ball joint right there, and that takes a 3/4 inch. Strangely enough, so it's I'm sure it's a metric size somewhere too, but I don't know that. But the 3/4 inch fits, and then you're going to have to lower the control arm down, and once you separate the ball joint from the knuckle. But it's going to be hard, so what I do, I've got a rebar hickey here. You see that? It's for bending rebar, and it works great for lowering knuckles. You've seen those big tools that you can get that you can do like that, and you can lower the knuckle. Well, this works just as good, and I didn't have to buy a big tool. So this rebar hickey was Harbor Freight. I think it was 30 bucks or so, and it works great. Okay, there it is. I broke it free. I'm going to show you a top tip for breaking it out of the knuckle. Unscrew the nut till it covers up the threads, and then watch. Okay, I'm sure there's a puller to separate this. I tried bashing it with a hammer, bashing the knuckle with a hammer. That didn't do anything, sledgehammer. So I've got this wedge here, this wood wedge, and you see the gap in between the nut and the CV joint? This will wedge right in there, like that, right next to the reluctor ring for the ABS, and you're not damaging the rubber boot, and you can whang on it with that same hammer, sledgehammer, and that'll pop right out. So hold on a second. You got it? Mm-hmm. Okay. There it goes.
Look at that.
All right, watch this. Now, you can stop filming. Okay, you can see the rubber not damaged. There's where all the pressure was on the CV joint. The reluctor ring not damaged, and of course the threads not damaged. And now I can get my bar. See, I'm doing the bar. Now I've separated it. So now I can take all that business out of there. Here's something that always works for me, is when I'm turning the nut after I've broken the ball joint loose, the whole ball joint turns. So just put a floor jack under it and apply some pressure to it, and then you'll be able to turn that nut off, because there'll be enough friction in the taper joint. Now it's up against the CV. Now we're going to let off on the jack and put our rebar bender, rebar hickey, and lower that down right there, and then take it the rest of the way off. All right, now you can take the rebar hickey and move it down and get it out from the knuckle and get the, you can see now that the axle is undone and the U-joint is undone. Let the rebar hickey back up. Hey, one thing I forgot to tell you guys is the rod end for the anti-sway bar. I already undid it on the other side, and I did this one here as well. So both of them are off the car. Just do it the first time you need to do it. Just do the one side and then do the other, and that makes the anti-sway bar a lot easier to manipulate and move around to get out of your way. So just get rid of these, put them on the bench. You're going to reinstall them when we get done. Okay. All right, now we're ready for to get the top screws out. Nuts, rather. These are 13 millimeter. See how it's dropping? All the nuts are out. Drop this baby down. There it is.